Bugatti, which is clearly in half. We did the impossible. But now it's going to get a lot harder because everything from now on is building the car and fix it.
For many months, Matt Armstrong's Bugatti project was a kind of story that the internet absolutely loves. It had everything: an incredibly expensive car that had been smashed to pieces, a skilled mechanic who was brave enough to try fixing it, a huge company trying to stop him, and millions of people watching from their screens to see what would happen next. People who had never cared about cars before were suddenly glued to their phones and laptops, watching a man in a workshop take apart one of the rarest and most expensive cars ever made. Experts said it could not be done. The car's own manufacturer said it could not be done. And yet, slowly and steadily, Matt Armstrong kept going. He kept fixing. He kept filming. And week after week, the car got close to being whole again. It felt like a true underdog story, the kind where the little guy beats the big corporation and proves that ordinary skill, patience, and hard work can achieve the impossible. But as is so often the case with stories that seem too good to be true, things are more complicated behind the scenes than they appear on a screen. Because just as the car finished and the victory should have been complete, a brand new problem arrived. One that has nothing to do with engines or carbon fiber or spark plugs. This problem involves lawyers, accusations of fraud, broken trust, and a lawsuit that is casting a very long shadow over everything Matt has built. The car at the center of all this drama is a Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, which is one of the most exclusive and valuable cars that has ever been produced. Only 60 of them were ever built. When one of those 60 was crashed and declared beyond repair, it was a big deal in the world of rare cars. When it was bought back by its owner and handed to an independent mechanic to fix, it became an even bigger deal. And when that mechanic actually managed to fix it, against all the odds and against the wishes of the manufacturer, it turned into a global story that millions of people followed closely. But the story did not end when the car started moving again. If anything, that was only the beginning of the most serious chapter, the chapter that involves a legal dispute between Matt Armstrong and the man who owned the Bugatti in the first place. That man is Alex Gonzalez, better known online as Zalex, and what he is now saying about his experience with Matt Armstrong is very different from the friendly, exciting story that was shown to the public during the rebuild itself. To understand why all of this matters, you first need to understand who Alex Gonzalez is and how this whole situation started. Alex is a content creator based in Miami, Florida, and he has built a large and loyal audience online by talking about day trading, which means buying and selling stocks and other financial assets very quickly, sometimes within a single day. He is the kind of personality who is loud, confident, and impossible to ignore. He built his audience by being bold and by saying things that catch people's attention. He is not shy about showing off his success, and one of the ways he did that was by owning a Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, a car that normally sells for somewhere between $4 and $4.5 million on the open market. This is not just an expensive car. It is one of the rarest cars in the world. With only 60 ever produced, each one a masterpiece of engineering and design. Owning one puts you in an extremely small and exclusive group of people. And then one afternoon, Alex took that car out and crashed it during a stunt, and everything changed in an instant. The damage from the crash was devastating. The front end of the car took the full force of the impact. The airbags fired. The carbon fiber structure, which is a skeleton that gives the car its shape and strength, cracked badly. The famous Bugatti horseshoe grille, which is one of the most recognizable design features of any car in the world, was destroyed. The headlights were smashed. And deep inside the car, hidden away beneath all that beautiful bodywork, the transmission, which is a system that moves power from the engine to the wheels, took damage so severe that Bugatti flew a specialist technician all the way from France just to come and look at it. That technician's verdict was brutal and final. This car was beyond repair by any independent workshop. It would need to go back to the factory in Molsheim, France, where only Bugatti's own team could possibly fix it. The insurance company agreed. They assessed the damage and came up with a repair quote that was almost impossible to believe. $1,700,000. That is more than some people earn in an entire lifetime just to fix one car. The car was officially declared a total loss, given a salvage title, and sent off to a place called Copart, which is basically an auction house where wrecked and written-off cars go. The world now had 59 drivable Bugatti Chiron per Sports, instead of 60 that most people, having received that insurance payment and watched their car get hauled away, would have taken a deep breath and moved on. Alex Gonzalez did not do that. Instead, he made a decision that was either extremely clever or completely mad, depending on how you look at it. He took the insurance payout that he had just received, and then he turned right around and bought his own crash car back at the auction. He paid around $1,600,000 for the winning bid, and by the time all the fees and extra costs were added on top, the total came to roughly $1,900,000. On the surface, that sounds like a ridiculous thing to do. But here's the logic behind it. If the car could somehow be fixed and made roadworthy again, it would be worth $4 to $4.5 million. Even if the repair cost several $100,000, the profit potential was enormous. The problem, of course, was finding somebody who could actually fix a car that Bugatti's own technicians had declared unfixable outside their factory. And that is exactly when Alex picked up the phone and called Matt Armstrong. Matt Armstrong is a British mechanic and content creator who has built his entire reputation on doing things that other people in the car world say cannot be done. His YouTube channel is built around buying cars and been written off, declared beyond repair, or simply given up on, and then methodically fixing them while cameras record every step of the process. He is skilled, he is patient, and perhaps most importantly, he is very good at explaining what he is doing in a way that anyone can understand and follow along with. That combination of genuine technical ability and natural storytelling instinct has earned him millions of subscribers and made him one of the most popular car content creators in the world. So when Alex Gonzalez had a crashed Bugatti that everyone said was unfixable, Matt Armstrong was a natural person to think about. The two men spoke, and Matt was interested enough to get on a plane from the United Kingdom and fly to Miami to see the car in person before making any decisions. The trip did not start well. On the way to the workshop where the crashed Bugatti was being kept, a Chevrolet cut across traffic and slammed into a Ferrari that one of Matt's own team members was driving. So before anyone had even touched the Bugatti, the project had already produced a second crash. If you're the kind of person who believes in bad omens, that was about as clear a warning as you could ask for. But the bad start to the trip was nothing compared to the wall that Matt was about to run into from a manufacturer itself. From the very moment Matt got his hands on the crashed Chiron, Bugatti made its position absolutely clear. The company locked a vehicle identification number, the unique code that identifies that specific car, in its internal system. In plain, simple terms, what that meant was this. No authorized Bugatti dealer anywhere on the entire planet would sell any parts for that specific car. Not a headlight, not a bolt, not a single piece. Nothing. This was not a mistake or a computer glitch. It was a deliberate, conscious decision made by the company to prevent the car from being rebuilt anywhere other than their own factory in France. Every single official route to getting the parts needed for the repair was sealed shut before Matt had even picked up a wrench. Think about what that actually means in practice. Matt was trying to rebuild one of the most complex cars ever made, a car with 10 radiators, a transmission built to handle more than 1,000 horsepower, and a carbon fiber body that requires specialist knowledge to work with safely. And he was being told that he could not have a single official replacement part to do any of it. The headlights, the hood, the grille, the transmission components, the airbags, all was off limits. Alex Gonzalez was not the kind of person to quietly accept that situation, and he responded with a public ultimatum that was either a stroke of genius or a massive gamble, depending on how things went. He announced publicly that Bugatti had 24 hours to unblock the car and allow parts to be sold, or he would begin manufacturing the parts himself using three-dimensional printing technology. Now, three-dimensional printing has become remarkably capable in recent years, but using it to make components for a hypercar that can reach speeds of over 300 kilometers per hour is a genuinely risky idea. The ultimatum put Bugatti in a very uncomfortable position. Either the company engaged directly with the situation and took the risk of appearing to give in, or it sat back and let a content creator live stream what happens when you replace Bugatti transmission parts with components made by a 3D printer. Neither option was particularly appealing for a brand that sells itself on exclusivity and perfection. What nobody expected was what happened next. Mate Rimac, the actual chief executive of Bugatti, the man at the very top of the company, reached out to Alex personally in a private message. Alex then made that message public. In it, Rimac asked Alex not to 3D print the parts and confirmed that the car's identification number had been unblocked. Then Rimac went even further and posted a full video of his own, addressing the whole situation directly to I in that video. Rimac pushed back on a lot of what was being said online about Bugatti and its repair costs. He explained that there are only 2 places in the entire world with the specialized equipment and training needed to separate the rear section of the car from the front section, a step that is absolutely necessary after a major crash to check for hidden structural damage. He confirmed that the gearbox housing had been shattered and that the carbon fiber monocoque, the central tub that forms the backbone of the whole car, had been structurally compromised. He also raised a serious point about safety. If those repairs were done incorrectly on a car capable of reaching the speeds a Chiron can reach, the consequences could be catastrophic. Rimac also tried to correct what he called inaccurate information that had been spreading online about the cost of Bugatti parts and services. He denied that a set of headlights cost $150,000, as many people had been claiming, and he said that Bugatti had offered to repair the car at their factory at what he described as a fair price, an offer he says Alex turned down. Reading carefully between the words of Rimac's video, it seemed like he believed the main reason Alex chose the independent rebuild was not because it made the most financial sense, but because it made better content for the internet. Matt Armstrong's reaction to all of this was almost funny in how genuinely shocked he sounded. He said on camera that it was absolutely unbelievable that the chief executive of Bugatti was watching his videos and had made an entire response video about him. But he was also completely clear about one thing. The car was not going to France. Matt Armstrong's reasoning for refusing to send the car to Bugatti's factory in Motium, France, was simple, clear, and easy to understand for anyone who has ever felt like a small person dealing with a big, powerful institution. His argument was this: once that car goes to France, it stays there. The Bugatti team would take it apart, find more problems. And on a car this complex after a crash this severe, there would always be more problems to find, and the repair bill would just keep climbing and climbing with no ceiling in sight. The question was never whether Bugatti could fix the car. Of course they could. The question was whether Alex would ever see the car again in any reasonable time frame, or whether it would sit in a French factory for years while the costs mounted. Matt framed this in a way that resonated strongly with his audience. It was a little guy versus a corporation, the independent mechanic versus the manufacturer who wanted to control everything. And having made his decision, Matt got to work. What followed over the next several months was, by any honest measure, one of the most impressive and entertaining mechanical projects ever filmed and shared online. The level of skill, creativity, and sheer determination that Matt and his team showed throughout the rebuild turned millions of casual viewers into dedicated fans. Every new problem that came up, and there were many, was solved in a way that felt both satisfying and educational. The transmission was the first major test, and it was a thing that Bugatti had pointed to as a reason only their factory could handle this car. Rimac had said that only 2 places on Earth had the equipment to split the car's structure and reach the transmission. So what did that actually require in practice? Matt pulled off the air boxes, the covers that direct air into the engine, and found 14 structural titanium bolts holding the front section of the car to the rear drivetrain frame. He removed those bolts, disconnected the battery terminals, the coolant lines, and the electrical wiring looms, and the 2 halves of the car came apart. It required patience, care, and a methodical approach. It did not require a magical machine that only exists in a factory in France. Inside the car, the crash had pushed the engine slightly forward, which had crushed the coolant pipe and caused additional damage that nobody could see from the outside. The real obstacle, the component that Bugatti had described as a deal-breaker, was a damaged bracket sitting between the engine and the gearbox. Matt's team's solution to this problem was genuinely clever and impressive. They 3-dimensionally scanned the original damaged bracket, turned that scan into a precise computer model, and then machined an entirely new replacement part out of a solid block of aluminium. This was not a rough approximation or a temporary fix. If any of the sensors on the new bracket sat even slightly out of position, the engine would run badly or refuse to start at all. This was precision engineering, done outside the factory, by a team the factory had essentially said was not capable of doing it. The transmission was fixed, and the car was put back together using the same 14 titanium bolts. But the rebuild was not without its tricky moments. During reassembly, one of the crank sensors got stuck and would not turn far enough to connect its electrical plug, a problem that would normally require taking the entire chassis apart all over again from beginning. Matt's solution was to cut a small access opening in the car's structure so that the team could reach the sensor without dismantling everything a second time. It was not the elegant, factory-perfect approach that Bugatti would have used. It was scrappy, it was practical, and it worked. And those small moments of creative problem-solving, documented honestly on camera, told the audience something important about the whole project. This was real, unfiltered mechanical work being done by real people who were figuring things out as they went, not a polished PR exercise. As the rebuild continued, other discoveries were made that were even more eye-opening than the technical challenges. Matt found that the airbag problem could be solved using airbags from an Audi A3, a car that costs a tiny fraction of what Bugatti costs. They were perfectly compatible with the Bugatti's safety systems. A piece of critical safety equipment in a multi-million-dollar hypercar shared its basic design and specifications with a regular, everyday hatchback. Matt also pointed out that the accelerator pedal on this $2 million car was simply a piece of molded plastic, not the premium billet aluminum component you might expect given the price tag. These details delighted and amused his audience, but they also carried a more serious message to be why March of the year. The car was running again under its own power, which was a moment that Bugatti had not expected would ever happen outside their own factory. Matt said that the whole experience had proved something he had believed all along. Car manufacturers do not want independent mechanics like him fixing cars like this, not because it genuinely cannot be done safely, but because an independent rebuild, done successfully in public for the world to see, tears a hole in the story of exclusivity and mystery that these brands sell so expensively. The idea that a Bugatti is impossibly special and can only be touched by a tiny group of specially trained people in a specific building in France is central to why the brand can charge what it charges for both cars and service. If Matt can fix one in his workshop with machine parts and Audi airbags, what does that say about the story the brand has been telling? It was a question that clearly made some very powerful people uncomfortable. And then Matt made things worse or better, depending on your point of view, by finding an even bigger secret hiding inside a second Bugatti. While the Chiron was getting all the attention, Matt quietly bought another Bugatti, a repossessed Veyron, which is the older model from the same company. The Veyron came to him with a list of problems. It would not go into gear, it was misfiring, a radiator was leaking, and the wiring to the gearbox pump had been so badly damaged by heat that the plastic casing had literally crumbled apart. Matt investigated the gear problem, which sounded like it could be a serious mechanical failure deep inside the drivetrain, and discovered that it was caused by a single blown fuse. He replaced that fuse. It cost $3. The car could move again. A problem that might have cost thousands of dollars at an authorized Bugatti service center was solved with a $3 part and some careful diagnostic work. When Matt called Bugatti to buy parts for the Veyron, he got exactly the same response he had gotten with the Chiron. The company would not sell parts to anyone outside its authorized service network. The car would have to come to them. Matt described this as a legal loophole, a mechanism that lets manufacturers block any independent repair of their vehicles, no matter how skilled the person doing the repair is, or how much responsibility they are willing to take on for the outcome. But the Veyron did not just illustrate the parts problem again. It gave Matt something far more powerful. Hard evidence as Matt dug deeper into the Veyron, he discovered that a very large number of the components inside it were standard Volkswagen Group parts. And that makes complete logical sense when you remember that Bugatti is owned by the same parent company that builds Volkswagens, Audis, and Porsches. But knowing it in theory and seeing it in practice, with the part numbers in front of you, are very different things. Matt found accumulator tanks, which are pressure storage devices used in the car's hydraulic systems, that were the same parts used in the humble Volkswagen Lupo, a small, cheap city car. He cross-referenced the spark plugs and found they were standard NGK units that you can walk into any car part shop and buy off the shelf. The gearbox pump that had been damaged by heat turned out to be the exact same unit used in the folding roof mechanism of an Audi A5 convertible. These were not approximations or similar parts. They were identical interchangeable components shared between a multi-million-dollar Bugatti and much more affordable, ordinary cars. And here's the number that makes the point most powerfully. Bugatti's official service for this car was supposed to cost around $25,000. Matt sourced all the same Volkswagen Group parts through normal channels and did the work himself for around $1,600. The gap between those two numbers, $25,000 versus $1,600, is not explained by superior engineering or secret knowledge. It is explained by the brand name and the controlled system of part supply and service that keeps the premium price alive. Matt Armstrong never set out to make a political point about how car companies operate or how they price their services. He just wanted to fix a car and film it. But by being thorough, by being honest on camera, and by showing every discovery no matter how surprising it was, he ended up producing something that directly challenges the central promise of the Bugatti brand. The idea that a Bugatti costs what it costs to service because a machine is impossibly special and requires impossible expertise is very hard to maintain once someone has publicly demonstrated that it runs on Audi parts and Volkswagen components. And when you make powerful people uncomfortable, powerful people tend to respond, sometimes with lawyers. So now Matt Armstrong finds himself dealing with legal pressure from more than one direction at the same time, and each source of that pressure comes with its own complications and its own risks. Understanding all three of them separately is the only way to understand how serious the situation has become and why it is not going away anytime soon. The first and most immediate source of legal trouble comes from Alex Gonzalez himself, the man who owned the Bugatti and whose car Matt spent months fixing. After the car was finished and running again, the partnership between the two men completely fell apart. Alex began telling his audience a very different story about what had happened behind the scenes during the rebuild. A story in which Matt is not the hero saving the car, but rather a villain who took advantage of him. Alex made public accusations of scam and fraud, claiming that things were not handled honestly or fairly during their arrangement. The specific details of those accusations, and how much truth there is in them, are genuinely hard to know from the outside, because both sides are telling very different versions of the same events. But what is certain is that those accusations are now out in the world. They have been seen by millions of people, and an audience that once trusted and celebrated Matt Armstrong is now being asked to choose a side. For a content creator whose entire business depends on the trust and loyalty of his audience, that is an extremely serious problem regardless of what actually happened between him and Alex. The second source of legal pressure comes from Bugatti itself. In April, Matt spoke openly and publicly about facing legal threats connected to his projects. He did not go into specific detail about exactly what those threats were or exactly how they had reached him, but the fact that he felt it was necessary to address the situation publicly suggests that things had moved well beyond a chief executive making videos on social media.